With the recent release of its 5th season, Cobra Kai has become one of the hottest, most anticipated shows out there, and for Netflix, it is second only to Stranger Things in terms of popularity. It is puzzling then that Netflix dropped season 5 with so little fanfare. A number of critics, as well as fellow YouTubers like our good friends Yellow Flash and Stone Loki, noted the distinct lack of advertising for season 5. This has led to some worries that despite the popularity and ever-increasing fan demand for more, Cobra Kai may not return for a 6th season. These worries were further compounded by Sony's very recent announcement of not the Cobra Kai, but another Karate Kid movie. What is up with that? In this video, we will begin by going over the problem of series longevity that is unique to Netflix, what the future may hold for Cobra Kai, and how that recently announced Karate Kid movie might tie in with all of this. To illustrate the Netflix problem, let's begin with a comparison to regular broadcast networks and cable. For each passing season, production costs rise as the cast will get higher salaries, the writers will be more in demand and have to be paid more, the producers get bigger bonuses, and the network itself also wants to see more on the bottom line. The reason this is sustainable for multiple seasons on end under the traditional model is first and foremost advertising revenue. As the show grows increasingly more popular, advertisers will pay higher and higher premiums for the advertising space, and the network can ask more and more in foreign sales, and if they own or co-own the show in question, they can even cash in on merchandise. There will eventually come a point where the rising production costs makes future seasons no longer sustainable, but for network and cable, even ones that dabble in streaming, that point may be many seasons down the line. Not so with Netflix. On Netflix, there are no advertisements that will offset increasing production costs. There are no foreign sales, as the series produced exclusively by Netflix tend to be worldwide Netflix exclusives. And if the series is made by an external production partner, and most are, Netflix might not even get a cut of any merchandise. In fact, the only thing any one-hit series is for them is but one of several offerings in their overall product mix, which attracts new and retains existing subscribers. In practice, this means that the point where rising production costs makes future seasons no longer worth it comes much earlier for an exclusive streamer like Netflix than it does for the competitors who dabble in streaming, but who chiefly operate under the traditional network and cable model. There is data to suggest that even for hit series, viewership tends to drop off somewhere between 30 and 50 episodes in. Netflix has no reason to go beyond this point, and unless we're talking about a smash hit in viewership, to even get to that point in the first place. Tom Harrington, an analyst at Ender's Analysis, states, "They have to give a show more money per series, and if they decide to recommission it, it becomes more expensive for them to make. Because of that, so many more shows are cancelled after 2 seasons because it costs them more." And indeed, the list of hit shows on Netflix cancelled after 2 seasons is a long one. In most cases, unless we're dealing with a Stranger Things level hit, it makes sense for Netflix to move on to something else after 2 seasons and continue to expand their overall product mix. But then you might ask, if Netflix cancels a hit series early because it makes no financial sense for them to carry on, can someone else pick it up? Netflix is certainly no stranger to picking up shows that gained a fan following, but not enough to be sustainable where they originated. Examples of this include Lucifer, The Killing, Designated Survivor, and even Cobra Kai, which started out under YouTube's failed YouTube Red initiative, under which the first 3 seasons were made. Yes, even though season 3 of Cobra Kai premiered on Netflix, it was made under YouTube Red, later Premium. Netflix only made seasons 4 and 5, and that is the 2 seasons they tend to give a hit series before moving on to something else. Which is another reason to worry Netflix might not want to make a season 6. So, if indeed that were to be the case here, could someone else pick up Cobra Kai instead? 。 While Netflix does have a penchant for picking up series that failed elsewhere, they do not like extending that courtesy to others. In a 2019 article, Deadline Hollywood stated that there is a standard clause in the deals for Netflix series from outside studios that prevents their shows from airing elsewhere for a significant period of time, said to be 2 to 3 years, making a continuation on another network or platform virtually impossible. A recent example of this is the Marvel Netflix series, where everything was placed in a 3-year moratorium. Case in point, Netflix cancelled Daredevil in November of 2018, and Marvel brought Charlie Cox back as Matt Murdock the very first opportunity they had, as a cameo in Spider-Man No Way Home in December of 2021. That's when the character was released from moratorium, but they couldn't even begin development of a Daredevil proper series until that point, which is why that is still quite a while off. Marvel were willing to wait 3 years for the return of their characters, but that's an exception, not the rule. To the extent of which there is a rule, it would be that if it's done on Netflix, it's done. We do not yet know the ultimate fate of Cobra Kai's 6th season, but we do know that the gang behind the show, Josh Heald, John Hurwitz and Hayden Schlossberg, have been hard at work with 2 other projects. A spin-off film that takes place during the events of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, as well as a more personal story in a series for Netflix called Obliterated. In recent interviews with Variety and Games Radar, the showrunners did talk about the possibilities down the line. Although we will try to avoid spoilers as much as possible, we still must stress that for those who haven't seen Season 5 yet and do not want any details, you might want to come back to this video when you are caught up on the show, as there will be mild spoilers ahead. In a September 14th interview with Variety, the showrunners were asked about a possible villain returning for Season 6 of Cobra Kai. Hayden Schlossberg led with a possibly alarming response. We liked the idea that for a lot of the characters it feels like we did it. It's over. Cobra Kai is done. Meanwhile, there's the ultimate Cobra Kai snake out there that is really pissed off at everybody right now. We'll see if life goes on easy in Season 6, or if this particular snake has something to say. Something tells me that it's going to be the latter. To which John Hurwitz added, "We have more story to tell. We're still figuring out the specifics of that." On the need for a Season 6, it's worth noting that back in December of 2020, Ralph Macchio told Lad Bible, "The writers have always felt they had 6 seasons in their head, where the story arcs can go, so that should all land when the time is right." And clearly, there is more story to tell. Going back to Variety, the showrunners were asked about the possible future for the franchise surrounding the Sekai Takai, which is a new concept introduced in Cobra Kai Season 5. A global tournament that brings together the world's best dojos, touted in the series as a Super Bowl of karate. Schlossberg said, "We grew up loving the Rocky movies. There's that original Rocky, and then there's Mr. T in Rocky 3. Once it gets to that craziness, how do you top it? Well, you get Russia and America and Drago. All of these kids are gaining in skill in terms of karate power, so you have to create a new obstacle for them to deal with. It felt like in real life that's what would happen. If you're the best around in karate, what are you going to do? Maybe there's something beyond just your local area." Adding to that, Schlossberg told Games Radar, "We didn't put the Sekai Takai out there as a red herring." In a follow-up piece, he even mentioned future spin-offs, which is interesting when seen in conjunction with Ralph Macchio bringing up a Miyagi spin-off prequel in a recent interview with GQ magazine.
I would love to see the Miyagi origin story. What was life like for him? Where does that go? What happened in World War II and when he came to the U.S. and wound up, a maintenance guy in the San Fernando Valley apartment building till this kid knocked on the door?
But until it is announced, none of it is technically more than wishful thinking. What has been announced is another theatrical Karate Kid feature film. While Netflix appears to remain undecided on the future of Cobra Kai, rights holder Sony are all in on the Karate Kid, as they have set a new movie to be released on June 7th of 2024. According to the Wrap, no details are known other than that it is not a continuation of the 2010 remake starring Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith, but a return to the original Karate Kid universe. So by extension, unless Sony decides on a completely different direction, it should presumably share continuity with Cobra Kai as well. For Sony, this only makes sense, with or without Nettflix. Cobra Kai is a phenomenon, and the response has been similar to Top Gun Maverick and Ghostbusters Afterlife, so to cash in on the brand in some way is a no-brainer. Many are confused with the announced title The Karate Kid though, and this may have something to do with legal wrangling with Nettflix over the title. Or it could signify something more that may already have been set up in Cobra Kai. We don't know at this time, but when we find out, we will keep you up to date, so be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you haven't already. And while you're here, do yourself a favor and check out our retrospective on the Karate Kid and Cobra Kai franchise, linked to in description, as well as right here in the end titles. With that, let me know your thoughts on this in the comments.